Something is happening in women's basketball that nobody, and I mean nobody, thought they'd ever see. Two storylines detonated at the exact same time, and they've turned the entire sports world upside down. One involves Caitlin Clark, and a rumor so explosive it sent agents, brands, and even league executives scrambling behind the scenes. The other? A plot twist nobody saw coming. Sophie Cunningham, yes, that's Sophie Cunningham, just leapfrogged every woman in American sports to become the most searched female athlete of 2025.
Hope everybody's having a great day today. The streets is talking about Caitlin Clark. Now, it looked like Caitlin Clark has definitely made waves throughout.
Rising to meteoric levels, and I knew this had already happened because, well, I did the Shadur Sanders part of this video on the football channel a couple of days ago. But it started to make its way around. I wanted to wait about Sophie Cunningham's rise to stardom.
More than Olympians, more than superstars, more than Caitlin Clark herself. And on Her Hoops, we're diving into both firestorms. Because let's be honest, the WNBA landscape doesn't shift quietly. When it moves, it erupts. And the eruption this time starts with a single picture. One photograph of Caitlin Clark standing next to Connor McCaffrey and powerhouse agent Alan Zucker, a man who represents Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Trevor Lawrence, Clayton Kershaw, and even Taylor Swift.
I know I kind of missed the day yesterday, I believe. I've just been having a lot of work going on with the other channel. I'm going to be traveling this week, so yeah, the video is going to be kind of shaky. It stated she lost the bulk. Caitlin Clark with Connor and Alan Zucker at Lucas Oil Stadium. Now, Alan Zucker, I believe that is the guy that we got to keep in mind. The one comment said, this college Caitlin. Now, Caitlin Clark did lose a lot of muscle, man.
It was harmless to the untrained eye, but to people who follow money, branding, and power, this was a potential earthquake. A sign, maybe, that Caitlin Clark was preparing to walk away from the agent many fans believe cost her millions in the now infamous Nike deal. But while that rumor exploded online, something even bigger broke. Google confirmed it. Analytics confirmed it. Even critics who can't stand her had to swallow it. Sophie Cunningham, Indiana's fan-favorite chaos engine, was the #1 most searched female athlete in the United States this year. Not Clark, not Reese, not Biles, not a soccer star, not a tennis icon, not an Olympian. Sophie Cunningham.
And the answer looks to be no. Now, Caitlin Clark attended the Indiana-Ohio State Big Ten Championship. She posted this, I don't know, I think it might have been on her Instagram. Don't worry, I'm cheering for IU at the game the other day. And there was another photo that surfaced, and it got people's attention. Caitlin Clark and boyfriend Connor McCaffrey.
So today on Her Hoops, we're going to break down exactly how these two stories collided, why they matter, and how they could reshape everything happening in the WNBA, on the court, off the court, and behind closed doors where the real power moves are made. If you love women's basketball, hit that like button, subscribe to Her Hoops, and buckle up, because this one gets crazy.
This right here, Goldman Sachs acquires majority stake in Excel Sports Management. Now, Goldman Sachs was already reaching out to Caitlin Clark and already doing business with her. You know, I believe she had a sponsorship with them, if I'm not mistaken, her rookie year. That's just Goldman Sachs, the company. And I believe that could be a big reason why they decided to purchase the company.
To understand why this moment is so explosive, you have to go back, way back. Before the photo, before the Google rankings, before the headlines turned Sophie Cunningham into an overnight cultural lightning rod. The seeds of this chaos were planted long before the 2025 season even began. Let's start with Caitlin Clark, because no player in modern women's basketball has carried more weight, more expectation, and more scrutiny than she has. From the minute she stepped into the WNBA, everything she did became a national debate.
It doesn't even look like there's been a change in agent, because his name has been brought up in conjunction with Caitlin Clark and Aaron Kane for at least the last 2 years I saw, going all the way back to, well, once I got to 2023, I was like, okay, that's far enough for me to have a pretty good answer to this question. So that answer would be no. It looks like she has not changed agents. I would assume she still has Erin Kane, which many believe.
What she wore, how much she weighed, how she shot, how she acted, who she dated. Every decision was magnified, dissected, judged. Meanwhile, she was juggling a historic endorsement load, a rookie season under a microscope, and a league that, let's be honest, didn't always protect her the way it should have. And in the middle of all that, her agent, Erin Kane. The same agent fans blame for the undervalued Nike deal. The same agent critics say couldn't match the generational magnitude of Clark's stardom. The same agent supporters insist never understood the culture-shifting nature of her brand. So when a photo surfaced of Caitlin Clark standing next to Alan Zucker, one of the most powerful agents in American sports, the internet didn't hesitate. They didn't ask questions. They leaped. Caitlin fired her agent. She finally made the move. She's leveling up. She's done playing nice. One picture, and the rumor became a wildfire. But while the sports world was busy decoding Caitlin's agency situation like it was a CIA document leak, another story was growing even faster. Sophie Cunningham, a player who came into the league respected but not worshipped. A player who spent years as a role player, a hustler, a grinder, until one moment changed everything. Her full-throttle defense of Caitlin Clark during the Fever Sun showdown. That shove, that takedown, that storm-the-court energy they had to physically restrain. Overnight, Sophie became polarizing, loud, defiant, marketable, and, most importantly, undeniably unforgettable. And from that moment forward, the public couldn't stop searching her name. Here's where the story splits into two parallel tracks, each one loud, messy, and full of consequences the WNBA is absolutely feeling behind the scenes. Let's break down each part step by step, starting with the agent controversy that set Caitlin Clark's fanbase on fire. Step 1. The photo drops. Caitlin Clark appears at the Indiana-Ohio State Championship game with Connor McCaffrey, and, standing right beside them, the unmistakable face of Alan Zucker, a titan in sports representation. Fans recognize him instantly. People start zooming in, screenshotting, analyzing body language like it was courtroom footage. Why? Because Zucker doesn't represent rookies. He represents brands. He represents franchises. He represents dynasties. So the question became, why is he standing next to Caitlin Clark? Step 2. Fans connect the dots. Within hours, social media had a narrative. Caitlin fired Erin Kane. Why? Because her Nike deal was widely criticized as too small, too safe, too slow. Fans believed she outgrew her representation before she even touched a WNBA court. So when Zucker appeared, they didn't need confirmation. They assumed action. Suddenly, blogs, channels, and even rival agents were whispering the same thing. Caitlin Clark is upgrading. Step 3. The reality check. Digging deeper, industry insiders revealed that Zucker is part of the same umbrella management group as Erin Kane. A connected network. A shared infrastructure. In other words, this wasn't necessarily a firing, it was access. Caitlin Clark was moving through power circles most rookies never touch. But fans didn't want nuance. They wanted drama. And the rumor became bigger than the truth. Now, track 2. The Sophie Cunningham explosion. Step 4. Sophie's notoriety becomes a machine. The shove on June 17th wasn't just a viral moment. It was a launch pad. Sophie became the protector, the enforcer, the player who refused to let the league bully its biggest superstar. Clips of her being held back spread like wildfire. Suddenly, she wasn't just a role player, she was a cultural figure. Step 5. Google confirms it. When the 2025 search rankings dropped, the entire sports world froze. Sophie Cunningham wasn't just popular, she was the most searched female athlete in America. Ahead of Clark, ahead of Olympians, ahead of household names. 2 stories, 2 shocks, 1 league caught in the middle. This is where everything starts boiling over. Because once these 2 storylines collided, the WNBA's entire ecosystem began to wobble. And the tension didn't just rise, it exploded. Let's start with the league's biggest contradiction. The WNBA wants Caitlin Clark's star power, but it has never known how to manage it. On one hand, the league parades her around as the golden ticket, the ratings magnet, the future of women's sports. But on the other hand, she's been shoved, hacked, mocked, isolated, dismissed, and, at times, downright targeted. And instead of stepping in, the league sat back and watched. So when rumors started swirling that Clark might be leveling up her representation, possibly moving under the wing of a mega agent like Alan Zucker, the timing wasn't lost on anyone. Fans didn't just see a picture, they saw leverage, they saw power shifting. They saw a frustrated superstar looking around the league and thinking, if you won't protect me, I'll protect myself. And here's where it gets even messier. Because while fans were dissecting Caitlin's agency shakeup, Sophie Cunningham was quietly disrupting the entire hierarchy of women's sports popularity. Now remember, this wasn't supposed to happen. Sophie was never supposed to outtrend icons, Olympians, or America's biggest household names. The WNBA has spent the last 2 years marketing everybody but her. But the internet had other plans. Her shove, her attitude, her "don't play with my teammate" energy, her willingness to run through a brick wall for Clark. It resonated. And the contradiction became undeniable. The WNBA ignored her. The fans crowned her. Google Trends didn't lie. Sophie became the most searched female athlete in the country, beating Clark, Simone Biles, Angel Reese, everyone. This was more than a stat. It was a cultural flare gun. Because now, for the first time ever, the league's popularity isn't being shaped by carefully crafted league narratives. It's being shaped by raw public emotion. Conflict, loyalty, tribalism, protection. And here's the uncomfortable truth the WNBA cannot avoid. Caitlin Clark is the star, but Sophie Cunningham has become the spark. Together, they aren't just athletes. They're reshaping the power structure of an entire sport. To understand why this moment is so explosive, why Caitlin Clark's agency rumors and Sophie Cunningham's breakout popularity matter far beyond a headline, you have to look at the mechanics underneath the drama. The business, the branding, the psychology, the stakes. Let's start with Caitlin Clark, because her situation is not just a sports storyline, it's a corporate case study. Caitlin isn't just a player, she is a market. She is a portfolio. She is a global asset who moves money, ratings, demographics, advertising spends, sponsorships, and investor trust. Her brand is worth more than entire WNBA franchises. That is not hyperbole, that is math. So when fans questioned whether she fired her agent, the reason wasn't gossip, it was economics. They believed her deals, especially the Nike one, were too conservative for her value. They believed she was being handled like a rookie instead of a once-in-a-generation influencer-athlete hybrid. Enter Alan Zucker, a power broker in a league of his own, someone who represents Mannings, someone who handles mega brands, someone who negotiates from strength, not gratitude. Someone who would treat Caitlin Clark not as a little sister in need of guidance, but as a Fortune 500 company. Even if she didn't fire Aaron Kane, just being in Zucker's orbit changes the power dynamic. Zucker doesn't sit with talent casually. His presence signals either oversight, transition, or elevation. And every version of that is a shift. Now, Sophie Cunningham. Her rise isn't luck, coincidence, or shock value. Her rise is behavioral. She tapped into the oldest currency in sports: loyalty. It wasn't the points, it wasn't the stats, it wasn't the resume. It was the moment she charged toward J.C. Sheldon and Marina Mabrey like a heat-seeking missile the second Clark got shoved. It was the instinct, the raw, unpolished, primal reaction that told fans, this woman doesn't wait for permission to protect her people. And in a league where Clark has often been left to defend herself, Sophie filled a cultural void. She became the first WNBA player fans viewed as Clark's real ally. Not politically, Not selectively, not when convenient, but instantly, emotionally, with zero hesitation. That is why she spiked to the most searched female athlete in America. That is why her popularity didn't just rise, it detonated. Because in the WNBA ecosystem, fans picked their warrior, and they chose Sophie. When you zoom out, past the noise, past the highlight reels, past the fan-made edits, past the social media wars, one thing becomes undeniable. This rivalry is dragging the entire women's basketball world into a new era. And not quietly, not softly, not politely. It's dragging it in, kicking and screaming, cameras flashing, fan bases arguing, arenas selling out, networks scrambling, sponsors bidding, the whole landscape shifting in real time. For years, women's basketball begged for this. A moment, a clash, a storyline that didn't just entertain the fans who were already here, but pulled in millions who never watched a game before. Caitlin and Paige are that moment, and the world cannot look away. Networks see it, ESPN sees it, Fox sees it, the NCAA sees it, even the WNBA, the same league that constantly says, "We need more visibility," knows exactly what this rivalry could mean for their future. Because let's be honest, the numbers don't lie. When Caitlin Clark plays, the entire sports world stops. When Paige Bueckers returns healthy, the internet melts. Together, it's a collision too big to contain. And what makes this rivalry even more powerful is the contrast. Caitlin, flash, range, swagger, deep ball villain. Paige, poise, polish, balance, assassin in silence. Two different energies creating the same outcome, massive, unprecedented attention. This rivalry forces uncomfortable conversations in the WNBA. Who gets marketed? Who gets protected? Who gets elevated? Who gets thrown under the bus? Who gets called overhyped? And who gets called the future? This rivalry forces college programs to level up, recruit better, train better, market better, because suddenly women's basketball isn't niche, it's mainstream, it's globally relevant. And for the culture, it's a blueprint, a signal, a warning to every critic who said, "Nobody cares about women's sports." Oh, really? Then why are millions of people watching two players like it's LeBron versus KD? This isn't just entertainment, it's legacy building. And whether fans love them, hate them, root for them, or argue about them, everyone is watching. And once the world starts watching, the world rarely ever looks away. At the end of the day, when all the dust settles, when the debates calm down, when the highlight reels fade into YouTube archives, there's one truth the entire sports world is going to have to face. Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers aren't just two players. They're the spark that forced everyone to pay attention. And isn't it crazy? For years, women's basketball fought for a seat at the table. For years, athletes begged for coverage, begged for fair treatment, begged for investment. Nothing moved, nothing changed, nothing shook the culture. Until these two stepped on the court. Some rivalries entertain, but this rivalry, it elevates. It forces evolution. It forces accountability. It forces the entire basketball universe to admit that women's hoops is no longer something you can ignore. Not when Caitlin is pulling up from the parking lot like she's rewriting physics. Not when Paige is slicing through defenses like a surgeon with a killer instinct. Their impact is bigger than the games, bigger than the trophies, bigger than the media noise. This is the kind of rivalry that future generations will study, not because of what happened on the court, but because of what it did off the court. It made little girls believe they could be superstars. It made investors realize women's sports are profitable. It made the WNBA rethink its entire marketing strategy. It made the NCAA understand the value of personality-driven storytelling. It made networks realize that women's basketball is not a charity case. It is a business. And let's not pretend, this rivalry is far from over. Caitlin's story is still being written. Paige's comeback arc is still unfolding. Their paths will cross again, in March, in the pros, in international play, And every single time, the world will treat it like an event. Not a game, an event. Because the truth is simple. Heroes don't grow the game. Villains don't grow the game. Rivalries grow the game. And no rivalry in women's basketball history has ever hit like this one. So whether you're Team Caitlin, whether you're Team Paige, or whether you're just here for the fireworks, you are witnessing history. A golden era, a transformation, a moment that will never happen again in quite the same way. So make sure you're here for all of it, because the story isn't slowing down, the rivalry isn't cooling off, and the impact isn't stopping anytime soon. This is Her Hoops. This is the movement. And if you want the full ride, like, share, and subscribe.